Hi, my name is Brianna Cates, and this is the history of the world from Delaware. And today we're going to talk about the Atlantic slave trade and the Akan drum. Start off, the Atlantic slave trade took place during the early modern period. This period spanned from about 1400 to 1800 CE, at a time when there were gunpowder empires and there was global trade. The African slave trade itself was actually when leaders in Africa were trading other Africans as slaves to Europeans, who were in turn giving them other goods such as spices, guns, gold, etc. These Europeans were then taking the slaves to the Americas, where they were to work tirelessly on plantations and produce cheaper crops to be sold back to Europe and make more profit. This was known as triangle trade. Now, the Akan drum is one that has traveled from Africa to Virginia to its current location in London. It was created in Africa around the Asante and Fanti kingdoms and was thought to have been brought to the Americas by either the captain of the ship, who got it as a gift, or maybe the chief's son, who sometimes went on the voyage for educational purposes. When it was used on the ships, it was to both keep the Africans active and to keep them from getting depressed by making them dance. However, in the New World, the drum ended up being banned because the slave owners thought it might bring the slaves together and inspire them to revolt. A slave rebellion that had happened involved one of these drums and made many of the owners worried. All the drums were then confiscated, and one owner took the specific drum to London with him. Also, while the drum isn't made by Native Americans, it has deer skin stretched over the top. No one knows how it got there, but some say it must be an interesting story. So, the Akan drum is a great symbol of how the Atlantic slave trade happened. It shows us first how the Africans used this drum as a way of keeping their hopes up in an extreme situation when there was little hope for what would happen to them. And secondly, it shows how material culture was traded and moved around the world in a new area than what had been. The situation and what had happened, though, was one of the worst possible. Much of what happened during the slave trade still affects the world we live in. There's still much racism in the world, and slavery, for that matter. It's also affected much of African Americans that were living in America after slavery had ended, not really having much of their own identity, with being dehumanized and having the last name of the slave owners they had come from. There was also this sense of new food or materials coming from faraway places that created this disassociation from what actually happened when these things were being harvested or made. That still carries into what goes on today all over the globe. But on a lighter note, from the drum, we can tell that throughout time, music has been a way of connecting and lifting spirits. Still to this day, it inspires and influences us through good times and bad, and it is something that is rooted deep within us as human beings. But anyway, that's all I have, so thanks for listening.